Okay, folks, trying something a little different for October. Um, I figured I would show how to build certain factions sponsors of Gaslands and what kind of cars to look for, this is mostly my personal opinion, so there's really no hard set rules for this. But no, this isn't part of this. So I figured we'd start with the very first sponsor in the book, and that's Rutherford. And the thing about Rutherford is they are your basic firepower team. If you play other tabletop games, you can kind of think of them as like your Tau or your certain guard armies, any kind of shooty army that's really hard to just knock out is pretty much what Rutherford is. Gotta get my shadow of my head out of the way. So the thing about them is they don't really want to be in the lead. They're one of the few teams that during a death race, if this is a Idris dragster, you're not going to chase it down. They've got too many good perks to get far ahead of you, and Rutherford doesn't have any racing perks. So you go with the most simple solution to any problem, and that's to just shoot the problem. They can't take any lightweight vehicles, so if you're worried about picking out vehicles, well, you don't have to worry about any buggies, bikes, and so you don't have to worry about any of those. So the two vehicles that really shine with Rutherford is your basic truck, which is what I've got for this Land Rover here, and then occasionally like your military vehicles like this thing, and then your basic car. And for Rutherford, it's he's an American oil baron, so muscle cars are of course a go-to, and but Rutherford is also about being the wealthiest people on the table. They afford all the guns, they can afford all the ammo, and so luxury cars and supercars and sports cars are also really good representatives of what they're about. So that's why I got these two Maseratis here. We've got this Buick GSX. They're also the only team that can take tanks and helicopters. But for this, I'm going to keep this pretty well simple. If you do want a tank, 1/72nd scale tanks are your best bet. Go get you a tank model kit. And there's also like these little tank model kits from like Temu and Wish and stuff that go together real well. And if you've got a 3D printer, you can just 3D print out a 1/64th scale tank like I did with my Sherman. And so all of that is on the table for Rutherford. And so what we're going to look at right now is I'm going to take these apart and get these in the stripper, and then I will talk about loadouts and firepower and some strategies. But that's so far. We'll go ahead and get that taken care of. This is my first time I'm experimenting with merging videos and trying some things. So with that in mind, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Are we all alive after that? Yay! My snap is not as bad as Thanos's. Okay, so got him out of the stripper, and after giggling about the word stripper like a toddler, let's talk about what Rutherford actually does really well and some loadout ideas. So first off, your basic cars have 2 slots for building. So your best bets is to think about weapons like the miniguns, which I got here. This little gun here could be a mortar, and that's what I'm thinking about doing with the GSX. And then we have rockets, of course. You can also go with the 125mm tank cannon on a truck, and that is a perfectly valid option. I don't really have a cannon on me, so I just got some ideas here spread out just to let you see what's going on for these builds. But just to go over what Rutherford does, if you're still learning, their main sponsor perks are the military hardware. So again, they can buy a tank, they can buy a helicopter. Again, I'm not really going to go over helicopters and tanks with this because I'm just showing them how to make a basic team for the sponsor and my own ideas. But tanks are very powerful for Rutherford. You can take a tank. Tank gets to have 1 weapon made as a turret free. So you pretty much just strap on your anti-tank gun and machine gun. It's really the only platform that just a basic machine gun is actually okay, because you already got a 8d6 weapon. If you're a little more adventurous, you can go with the BFG. I actually think the BFG is more Rusty's style. Rusty's Bootleggers. If I get to make that video, I will explain all the shenanigans that a BFG can help with Rusty's. But the basic things here is that they also have a perk called Well Stocked. So any weapon that has ammo 3, mortars, rockets, your 125mm cannon, all of these weapons that are normally ammo 3 for everybody else, you get 4 shots. So you're already basically 1 shooting phase ahead of everybody else. Because anybody else that brings ammo weapons, they're only going to have 3 shots. And the larger games you play, my group normally plays 4 people at about 50 can to 75 can builds. So there's usually 10 to 12 vehicles on the table. So there's plenty of targets. So it's very likely you'll run out of ammo. Rutherford, that extra ammo can actually go a very long way. And so again, the other thing to remember is they also have the Might is Right perk thing. So they can't take lightweight vehicles. Rutherford is not about the little pansy bikes and the little squeaky buggies. So they want tanks, they want cars, they want trucks, they want heavy trucks, they want war rigs. So any kind of vehicle that you see that you look at and go, "Ooh, that's a big beefy vehicle." That's a good Rutherford vehicle to start off with. And again, like I said, again, luxury cars, Mercedes, Lexus, BMWs, and your muscle cars. All of that is the Rutherford way of going. And then you got televised carnage, which is your bread and butter and reason for playing Rutherford. And what it is if you roll your dice and you get 6 hits, and you hit on a 4 and up. So if you roll your dice and you come up with 6 4+, you get an audience vote. All right. So when you're building your team, you have to come up with a way to get 6 hits. That means if you're running a car, a machine gun isn't going to cut it. A machine gun and armor plating isn't your what you're going to win with. If you're going to play Rutherford, you have to think, how do I get those 6 hits with my vehicle? And that's where the minigun comes in and shines absolutely perfect for this team. You get 46 for 5 cans. And for those 5 cans, you get infinite ammo, essentially. And for a basic car, you can take 2 miniguns, a perk like Crowd Pleaser, and then another perk. And that's 25 cans. So if you've got a 50 can team, then you run 2 of those, and it's very simple, very effective, because then your car is essentially doing 8d6 every shot. And if you have some of the perks on, we'll go over some of those, that you can actually hit on 3s. So that's something to consider. And then there's another option, which is the mortar. The mortar is a can cheaper than the minigun. And because of well stocked, you have ammo 4 instead of ammo 3. And so with this vehicle, I'm leaning towards, like I said, maybe a mortar and maybe one of these miniguns. Kind of a blend between the two. But either way, 2 miniguns, 2 mortars, a blend of the either one, is a good option. And that's pretty much the bread and butter Rutherford car. The trucks get a little more interesting, because again, you have the 125 as an option. You have rockets as a good option. You have a 6d6 with rockets, and then you have another free slot for another weapon. So you could have rockets in a mortar, or you can have rockets in a minigun, and you're now throwing as much dice as the BFG. And you're also not putting hazards on yourself as you would if you used the 125. So you have that option, which is what I was looking at here for this one. Then you have what I would call the cheeky Rutherford, because the 6 hits doesn't mean damage, it means hits. So that means you have another weapon called the harpoon. The harpoon doesn't do no damage, but it does 5d6 damage. So you combine the harpoon with another weapon, and now you're actually making that 6 hits possible. So with this one, I've already got the tank tracks on it, And so it's going to be a slower vehicle than... and I've got my brother over here mocking me over my shoulder. But, so this one has this little turret thing here, and I'm going to make that into a turreted harpoon. And so this vehicle is a lot slower than other vehicles. So it'll use the harpoon to pull them into it and then let its teammates finish it off. And so we'll have this weapon with the harpoon, and then maybe we'll have a ram or something to smash with. It's really the only time Rutherford really wants to be smashing people, because with the way the rules work, if you're touching somebody, you're distracted. If you're distracted, you're not shooting. And if you're not shooting, you're not getting your audience votes, and you're going to be falling behind. So, well, again, with this one, I'm leaning towards harpoon, ram, tank tracks. And then, since this is going to count as a truck, I'll have 2 more crew. And we can go shotguns, or we could go submachine guns. And that'll make up the difference for the dice. And so that's just something to consider. And yeah. One thing about crew-fired weapons, they're expensive. But you do have a 360-degree arc. And they don't really work with some of the perks, but they do work on a few. And so shotguns and the submachine gun, I think, are the 2 that are pretty much, if you've got a spare crewman open and you've got 5 cans, 4 cans, and you don't know what to do with, it don't hurt. Take it. So we'll go over the smaller perks, the category ones. The first one is, of course, the badass perks, I believe it's called. And the first one is powder keg. Now, they share this with the warden. And so the first perk they have that's available is powder keg. Leave powder keg to the warden, people. If you're blowing up, your vehicles are expensive. Their vehicles are cheap. You might take somebody out, but you probably already lost the race by then. It is a 1-can perk, but I don't recommend it for Rutherford. Crowd pleaser, I do recommend, because what happens there is if you wipe out, you get a free audience vote. Because if you're going to spin around, you're going to do it in style, and the crowd's going to go wild and love it. Road Warrior is one of my personal favorites, and it's if you get 1 hit during your shooting phase for the turn, you can take a hazard off. And in this game, if you get 6 hazards, you wipe out, you drop to gear 1. That can be the end of a race right out of the gate. So having that audience vote can be a lifesaver. If you spin out, you go to first gear, and you've got an audience vote from Televised Carnage, and you've got an audience vote from that. That's 2. You could use those for burn rubber, get up to gear 3, and maybe you're still in the race. Cover Me is a little interesting perk. I think it's 3 cans. And it's basically, if this vehicle has 5 hazards and you're about to wipe out, you can pass that one, I believe, within double range. It's either medium or double range to the next teammate. The better perk is called Madman. So if you have 4 more hazards, you can move one of those hazards to any vehicle that's in medium range. So, as I mentioned about chasing down Miyazaki and Idris and Maxine cars that are sliding and spinning and gathering up all those hazards and dodging your shots, if one of them is sitting at 5 hazards, you can just go, boop, and then watch them flip and crash and burn. That's a very fun thing to do. Bullet time is another good one. It's you slide, and then the whatever weapon you have is a turret. If you're doing a cheap performance car, it's, I think, an auto include. This one here, I'm going to say, like, if I want to make it a turret, if it comes to performance cars, you pretty much have to have them as a turret or have a bullet time. One or the other. But Rutherford doesn't really... The only reason I'm doing a performance car is because they actually do have some sneaky ways of getting to 6 hits. And I'll get to that, the perk that these cars should be taking at all times. And that's the military perks. And now they shared this one with Michigan, and that is Deadeye. So any vehicle that's outside of your medium range, but at double, you get a +1 to hit. So you're hitting on 4s, and now you're hitting on 3s. So if this one is shooting at... This is just a car I'm working on later. Just, let's say you're about... Okay. I need to keep them in line. So assume this is outside of medium range. And you shoot, your gun's here. You can take them out. And again, hey, the faster cars are going to be ahead of you. So it's okay to let them get ahead a little bit. As long as you can close that distance just enough and pop them with Deadeye, you're good. Loader is another perk. Loader's good. It's you take and go down a crew temporarily for that round, and you go and get a +1 hit. If you're taking a truck with the 125, perfect. Rockets, again, it's pretty good for that too. Fully loaded is when you got 3 or more ammo, you get a +1 hit. This one doesn't require any shenanigans or positioning. It's just 2 shots, and you need to either be reloading to keep the perk, or you need to just admit that you're not going to have the perk for after 2 shots. So rapid fire is for 1 round. You basically get to pick 1 weapon and shoot it twice. That is your quintessential tank perk. Because nobody wants to have 8d6 thrown at them. And nobody wants 8 and then another 8 thrown at them. Just pure math, you're going to either destroy somebody or wipe them out. You'd have to be extremely unlucky to miss somebody, even in Gear 6. So, that perk is, again, for the tank, it's perfect with the 125. You can still get away with it with other weapons, Again, nobody wants 66 and 66 thrown at them. But I think there's better ways to spin your cans if you're trying to get your audience vote. And then there's Headshot, which is your performance car speciality. When you get a crit in Gaslands, it normally counts as 2 hits. Headshot makes it 3. So if I roll my rockets and I roll 6d6, if I get 2 6s out of 6 dice, I'm automatically getting my audience vote. So, because the televised carnage doesn't matter if the opponent dodges it. It's just you rolling the hit. So, again, that really works well for them. And then there's return fire. Return fire is a dangerous perk, in my opinion. Basically, once every gear phase, which is where it shines, if somebody shoots you, you can shoot them back. Problem is, you take 2 hazards to do that. Now, if you've got a truck and it's got a 125 on it, you're already taking a hazard for using that. Now you're going to take another 2 hazards every gear phase to shoot somebody back. And again, you're going to go right through all your ammo very quickly. And then if you run out of ammo and you don't have the audience votes to reload, they're just going to drive off from you. So that is kind of my overall opinion on that. So just a little bit of stuff here before we move on to the next phase, where I will have all these cars glued together. These little things, if you ever find these, they're usually on your shoes or clothes when you buy them. These are cheap, awesome little harpoons, because you already got the wire and you've got like this. So you can get it. Every time I pull it close, the camera kind of wants to screw it up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you understand what these are. So if you see them save these, and they make good harpoons, because I'm going to be using these and combine with this to make a harpoon. And so yeah, all right, well, let's get on to it, and I will see you again when these are built, and we'll try this again, because I don't know if it's gonna work. I got 2 fingers. Oh, that was shitty. Here we go. All right, so the next step is done. Called a little bit of an audible, and even though I've already done some Cult of the Inferno vehicles, I decided, since this is another good Rutherford idea, I was go ahead and make this Buick into a flamethrower vehicle. And while it's a little more close quarters than what Rutherford would normally do, it's not a bad setup. We got our extra crewman back here with his submachine gun. We've got, the fuel for the flamethrowers, and got another cow skull thing again extra one from Jim Silva. This car, when I got it out of stripper, there was a hole here, so I just put a little metal plate there. And I'm gonna leave these wheels. I like these wheels because it looks like there's brake shoes behind here, and so it actually looks a little realistic. I'm still debating on whether, well, nah, I'm good on that. But yeah, I was going to talk. I got off track here. There's no exhaust pipes on this one, so I was originally going to run the pipes here. This is what I was talking about debating. But I didn't like how it looked there, so I just took these pipes here and got those. These come from an Etsy store called Switchyard Studios. Really happy with some of their stuff. You'll see some of their stuff in my upcoming builds. But I haven't glued these together, so now you can actually see my process of putting people in a vehicle. That's just one of these little architectural figures. You can get these on like Wish and maybe Temu for like $5-6. You get like 100 of them, and they are the perfect thing to cut up to fit in here. I think it's not HO, but it's like one step between. I got coffee. But anyway, so you can see here, you just cut the figure at the waist at a little bit of an angle so you can sit them up in the seat. Cut their arms so, they can grip the steering wheel. Sometimes you gotta rearrange the steering wheel, cut the steering wheel, pull, play around with it. But it always works out. And this vehicle, I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with the second crew member because I didn't just want to have them in there. And I've already done people hanging out the window before. So I tried to do something different with this one. So let's put it back. This is just held together before I take it outside to do the priming. So I don't think I've got anybody standing in the back like this before. So I think that works out well. And that's just a Micro Machine dude. A little bit small for Gaslands cars generally, but this Buick is kind of got a small interior. So it fits in the scale compared to the driver too. So, and then we've got the Maserati. The Maserati has the idea, again, I was talking about before, between the two best real weapons for the car being the minigun and the mortar. So instead of doing 2 mortars or 2 miniguns, I decided to do minigun and mortar. So again, this is again another one I kept the wheels on. This one will stay as a roller. But we cut the back window out so we could fit the mortar in better. And then we'll just pop this loose so you can see the shenanigans in here. It's a little bit of a tight fit because you'll see what I did here in just a second. There we go. Rutherford being American, you know, cowboy hats and firepower. Even though it's a Maserati, you know, I think Italian sports car. Again, Rutherford's also about luxury vehicle. You know, in my opinion, they're luxury vehicles, expensive cars. So we've got our cowboys in a Maserati, pistol, hat, you know, and so this one's a little trickier to go back together, but it's not too bad. But you gotta see, this is when you're trying to put crew in, you gotta sometimes measure where the, come on, focus. Okay. You gotta measure where these windows are, because the guys will basically have their heads banging against the glass, and it'll mess up your build. So sometimes you gotta like scrape out, and so this is the Land Rover, and I'll show you what that looks like. Again, this is the tires from Switchyard Studios. This is the last thing, one of the last things I 3D printed before my printer decided to give up the ghost. And I got a minigun here, and cut the back window out, so we've got a guy back here, and so I think I like Smashbox cars that just got the little peg here. You don't have to drill out one hole and everything comes apart. But you can see here where I had to cut here so the guy's hats wouldn't get in the way of putting the car together. And this dude, these little holes back here, actually, his hat just fits right in. It's kind of funny. So, yeah. And these here, these are Civil War figures. I got a bunch of these on the cheap. So again, you know, I just cut the dude. This guy was carrying a bucket, so I just cut the bucket off. I put the bucket back here as a feed thing for the cat. And, yeah. Just slightly bent the steering wheel so he could fit under it. And cut him at an angle, feed him in there. And, so yeah, it's a Confederate and a Union soldier in a British SUV. But, yeah, so. For this one, it's definitely a rocket, minigun, shotgun Rutherford vehicle. So, lots of dice there in the right situation. Plus, shotguns are 360, so you can kind of get better angles on things. I cut the window out of the back so it would look like a folded up window, but it makes it a little stiff. Try and get it in there, but not a big deal. So we'll get that in there. You can see here, it's still like a little bit of a touch because this won't stay together. But once you get this glued, you know, it'll be fine. And the Maserati, this one's the simplest one because there's no crew with this one because you can't see in. Once these glass would be painted, you wouldn't be able to see the driver. So I'm not going to worry about that. But rocket, and then we got a little button piece make us rocket a turret. And so you can see here the rockets clear the back spoiler. It also gives it a little bit of height there, so to do that. And yeah, so that's the teammate to the other mouse ring. And there's this little fellow. This was the one I was telling you about. You could do a little bit of cheeky things with Rutherford, and that's with the harpoon. And that's again with the little close wire thing. Look, cut the little gun out, and so this moves. Yeah, so 360-degree turret. Little ram. I was trying to get it where it kind of fit better. It's a little lower than I like it to be. You can kind of see it scrapes a little bit, but that's fine. And ignore that. Did add an oil slick dropper. They don't really need it, but it just, this back side here was just so flat. And so you can see here, their micro machine guy. You can see here again, you can use the architectural figures, mix and match with other 1/72 scale figures. Give this guy arms and legs and little donor steering wheel. And since the arm that this one came from had like a cane, now you got a stick shift. This guy here I printed out. He printed it a little too small. So he's shorty. And so you got the crew in there. And so again, this build here would be harpoon, oil slick dropper, and 3 submachine guns, tank tracks, and ram. And so this is a expensive build, but it would be still very effective. So anyway, that's what we've got for our Rutherford build. And now I'm going to take these and get them primed. And next update should probably be, because I don't think I just want to see these things gray. So I'll probably do the base coat and then do the next step, show you what the new colors are. And then the final step, which will be the inks and shading and stuff, and just how to work with that. And so yeah, let's see if I can get this video to sync up with the other ones and make one big video, because that's again the big plan. We'll see how that works. And I'm going to enjoy my coffee. Alright, so cut away, and next time you'll see these, they'll be base coated. Alright, forgive the weird wonky camera angle, the thingamajigger that I used to hold on to the camera fell, and I'm trying to get it back in the right position. But, so I'm gonna try to keep my head out of here, at least the shadow of my head, so I can show what's going on. Again, turn on the light so people can see. So yeah, all right, everything's base coated now. So the next phase will be decals. And so go ahead and pull out some decals here so you can see what I like to work with. I got the Jim Silva box here. Is now loose decal, little bits and stuff like that, little pieces of decal. It's not that container. But just go through some things that I think you should be on the lookout for. And I found these at Hobby Town. I don't know if they're at every Hobby Town, but I got a whole bunch of these for a couple dollars. They're Gundam, I believe. I don't know my Gundams past the original series and Wing that well, so you probably know Overflags and Union and I use that teddy bear a lot for things. So I have no clue what that's about, but I know it's from Gundam. And then you got rub-on transfers. These are sometimes a little cantankerous to work with, but you can get those at the Dollar Tree sometimes, and they're $1. Or you also get the ones from Pinewood Derby cars. Those are a little on the big side, but if you've got like a war rig or something, they're perfect because if you got like a big flat surface and you want to put a big image on there, you can just lay it down. And if you've got a brush like this one here with the flat end, these make great transfer mediums. Just rub it real hard and you're off to the races. And then we've got, yeah, your typical Warhammer, and I've also got some Green Stuff World decals and stuff. And then we've got two more things to show you that are really, really cool if you're looking to really detail up your cars. So the first one is this. These are temporary tattoos. You can find these at Dollar Tree, Dollar General. You know, you can get these out of a 50-cent machine. So, you know, the only trick with those is sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and I just spilt a whole bunch of decals in the floor. Great. But then there is these. Now these are the ones I think work the best for Gaslands. And these are your nail art decals. Some of these, like these here, are water transfer. So they work just like a regular decal. I think they work better than some decals, to be honest. And then you've got the peel and stick ones. So if you like this Happy Halloween image, you can just take a X-Acto knife, go under it, and pull it up and stick it on the car. And it's usually a little bit tacky, so you can kind of peel them off and reposition them a bit. And for like $6, you can get several sheets of certain themes. Like this was a Halloween theme I got for getting all the skulls and the blood and the stuff like that most Gasland cars have. And you got your cutesy stuff that I like to put stuff like that on my car sometimes, because nothing's funnier than getting ran over by Cheese Sweet Home. But like, if you have like a Scarlet build, and some sharks and some sea creature stuff, so you want to give somebody a case of crabs, who am I to judge? You know, you've got these options. And again, this is like, you know, $6, and there's several sheets, so you've got plenty. And it's more Halloween. You know, some flamingos again. If you want. And then of course I've got dragons. So and when I do, the next sponsor in the book is Miyazaki, I believe. So, you know, dragons are really fitting for their imagery. And if you've got a Cult of the Inferno build, you want to do a fire truck, you got some Dalmatians. So, Christmas build, snakes, you know. So this is just what I use. And so this is a pretty short video, I think. You can see here for, you know, my general color theory with Rutherford is, you know, simple camo colors. Like this is kind of a desert thing I just slapped together. Tan, brown, a little bit of white, and just sponged it on to this Range Rover. And you can see here, this is the crew, and Everybody's, you know, getting there. And then you've got pretty much, there really is no, like, official color scheme between the sponsors of the game. But a camo green, olive drab, that's pretty close to that's the closest bread and butter color for Rutherford. But, you know, we got this, you know, yellow GSX. One thing I do sometimes is I look up the real world cars and see what colors they actually came in. So there's yellow and white, and so it's not the yellow, and it's missing the hood stripe thing, but, you know, I might be doing something different than that anyway. But it's still pretty close, you know. And then, of course, sometimes you just say, heck with it. Do some red, do some green, and have some fun. So that's the general rule of thumb for the next stage for Rutherford. I don't really think they're the kind of sponsor that really benefits from crazy, over-the-top, flashy colors. But it still works for them. As long as you remember that they're about being big, bulky, mean, and lots of firepower. So, if you find decals and stuff that kind of emphasize that, I also think, like this one here, since it's a British vehicle, I've got some British decals. I'm going to see if I can British this thing up some more. Yeah, I just created a whole new verb, Britishing things. But, yeah, so it's pretty simple. But trying to get this and my car of the month build done for October. The deadline's the 31st. Today's the 28th, so I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. Yeah, so you can see, again, everybody's ready to play. And the next thing, once we get the decals done, will be... See, this is what I'm talking about. This thing is just in the... I like this thing, but in the way it's still annoying. And then this is your secret sauce for decals. You want to take this and you want to... once you get your decals down, especially temporary tattoos, you've got to use this with temporary tattoos. Once you get your decal down and you're happy with where it's at, I'll try to move this so you can see again. Again, if you're happy with everything the way it is, you can just paint a thin layer of that on top. You can go straight from the jar with a brush and just lightly brush over it. It'll also kind of dull the paint, so if you want to dull everything down a bit, it'll look better that way. But, you know, that's how it works. That's my favorite thing to do. And when you put it over decals, and especially temporary tattoos, it seals them to the paint. So if it falls off the kitchen table while you're playing with your friends, you're not going to scrape it right off. And, you know, with a lot of stuff, especially with the temporary tattoos, if you just put it down on the car and leave it, eventually, one, it's going to peel up, and then also it's going to be, you just wipe it off with your thumb. So you waste your effort. By putting the Mod Podge and stuff on it, you actually keep it sealed to the car and keep it there permanently. Unless, of course, you dip it in a paint stripper and want to strip it again. But that's pretty much that. So we'll move right along, and next time I come back, they will be pretty much done. Because next phase after the decals is to do shading, and I'll do a short video on doing how to quick shade things. And then highlights, some rust, some dust, and these will be done. Okay. So with that, we're moving on to the next stage. Okay, so now we've got our decals on. And if I'm being quiet, it's because it's about 1 in the morning and I don't want to wake anybody up. So, you can see here, it's a mix of decals and random stickers, and nail art decal can get you. Like this one here, the flame here is nail art decal and regular decals, and there's some 40K, and there's one of those little Gundam ones, and and then there's the Range Rover. So I got a big old rocket pods, and I got some fancy snake stuff on there. And this came off of a Gloucester Javelin kit I had that when I was 16 I turned into a spacecraft. So yeah, I'm 40 now, so that kind of shows how long I've had those decals. But they worked well. So this here was a temporary tattoo. You can see how you just lay it over a good flat surface, and it works beautifully. And then again, we just sealed it with Mod Podge. And so yeah, that's your Rutherford vehicle with the minigun and the mortar. And so yeah. And I got this car here. This isn't part of the Rutherford thing. I was just messing around with it. But so the little box here. One thing about decals is you can kind of create your narrative with your decals of what kind of vehicle you want this to be. So like, you know, this is MC11, so Mobile Carrier 11. So that's what this is, you know, and that gives you kind of an idea of the lore you can build around your vehicles. I do hope everybody can hear me, since, like I said, I'm trying to talk softly. But since now the next step is going to be rust, and I did want to show how I do rust in a sort of quick, dirty way. And there is this spot right here on this car. And so first color we're gonna pick up is this wine color. It's Anita's craft paint. If you don't want to use this kind of paint, any kind of burgundy color is your base for rust. Most rust has got like a reddish tone to it. And then you're going to get a brush with a stiff bristle. And what we're going to do is we're going to just get in here where, like, the paint likes to dry. Pick that up a little bit. And then we're going to kind of, this is where the water would kind of sit on the roof. And if you look at real photos of cars, a lot of times it's the roof and, you know, the gaps where water kind of drains in. But we're just going to do this right here on this car, just to fill in this kind of a open space here. And you know, I'll do the whole car later, but I just want to go through. So you got that right there. And that kind of gives you like a little, I guess you want to call it like a bruise, sore spot. And do a washing, and we'll wash this off. Alright, so then the next thing we need is a piece of foam, and any kind of foam will do, but this is the kind of stuff I like, and it's also the stuff I have, so use whatever you have. Sponge brushes, you can get them at a dollar store. They'll work just fine for this. So then we'll take this terracotta color. I use this a lot for Latino skin colors and Native American skin colors, but it's a good rust color too. And So we're going to come in here and we're just going to get a little bit of paint like this. And so you want to get about like that much right there. And you want to use your handy dandy tester. And okay, now we got that. So we're going to take our car, we're going to take our little piece of foam, and then we're just going to go and we'll kind of fill out the little area we've made. And, you know, if you get a little bit too far, it's not too big of a deal. But one thing, I don't know if you can see it. You kind of see how the sponge kind of put a texture to that. So that's how, you know, real rust, you know, will work. And, you know, if you go out and you touch real rust, it's not smooth. It's rough, and then that creates that little bit of a texture. And so that's, you can stop there. Or you can also do like streaks and stuff. And then another neat thing is if you want to get into like a crack of the car, you can cut the foam like this. You can cut it into a smaller piece and then dab in there, and, which I'll do later off camera. So we'll let that dry a little bit, and then we're going to get this sulfur oxide, and this is the last little color. So we're just going to get a little smidge, and yes, I know I need to wash this. And then we can take the other side of our sponge, dab, 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 dab. Just get a little bit, we don't need a lot. And then we'll take this, and then we're going to dab, 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 dab. Alright, so now we got our rust. And now, so when you do your shading, if you use like a brown shade or a black and brown shade, you can kind of work this down. So it's not quite as bright. And if you want to do some streaks and some other effects, this stuff is really good. What I like to do is I like to kind of use it as a shader in itself. So I'll come in here and so this is going to probably smooth out a little bit because I'm rushing a little bit, because normally I would wait between different cars and stuff, so it's going to be a little wet when I do this. It's going to blend a little bit more than I want, but okay. So now we can see that this, and so if you get a little paint there and you don't like it, you're like, no, I don't want to get that there. A lot of these washes, you can just get a brush with another stiff bristle and just come in here and go and kind of clean that up a little bit. You can use your finger a little bit too. And there we go. So now, you get the rust spot. And once you do your shading and everything, and it'll dry, it'll eventually look like this. That's what it'll look like when it dries. And you've put your shade on it. Quick, cheap, easy way of doing rust. So, alright. So that's going to be this section. Next time we come back, I will have these inked, and I'll try to remember to save one out so you can actually see me ink vehicles. But that's how you basically do it. That's very simple. So anyway, alright, on to the next phase. And here we go. Alright, so most of the inking's done. I saved one out though, because I was going to show you how to do ink. I've already mixed up some here, but these are what I like to do. This is a Higgins Black Magic. This is my usual go-to, and then I'll usually mix it with a brown ink, and I've got this Bombay Van Dyke Brown. These are normally for like ink pens and stuff, but it's a lot cheaper than shading stuff, so I like to use it. And so make sure you get this stuff in view here where you can actually see me work. I'm still not quite used to getting my hands in stuff here. You can actually see. This is how you can tell somebody actually paints. You should always have messy fingers. So did the bottom already. So we'll just grab a little post here and let this down. You can kind of judge by using your palette how much you want it just to kind of pull. And basically, you know, you go across the model like so, and some of it will sit on the surface, but most of it will go into the crevices of the model, like so. And so with Gaslands, I don't mind some of the ink sitting on the surface, because that kind of adds like a bit of a grime to it. And but if you want to make sure it goes all in there, you can thin this out with some more water. I just thin out a little bit of water. I don't do too much. Get these pipes here, and I'll come across here, and that'll get there. And you can see here, even like on the surface of this card, it just the surface here when you do the ink shading, it adds a bit of a grime to it, and when it dries, it'll look a lot better. Right now it's a little bit shiny, but that's fine. This is, like I said, one of my favorite little tricks is mixing those two together. And you can also mix like a reddish brown if you want like a more of a mud color to your shade. I do recommend when you do use shades like this, you can even just take regular black acrylic paint and just thin it way down, and that works as a shade too. Especially if you're doing these like panel lines and stuff. You know, and you just want to get into the panel lines and do that. That'll work just fine. But I like to add a little bit of brown to my blacks because I just think it makes it look a little more natural. And so you can see this does not take a lot of time, and this is like the very first stage of this. And now if I was doing models that weren't like post-apocalyptic, I would thin this down even more. And so yeah, and there we go. You can kind of streak it like this right here if you want like to make it look grungy, or you can come across like this and just use your fingers, wipe it off, and it does a little bit of highlighting for you. I used to do this thing called antiquing, where you would take something and ink it down and then wipe off the top, and it makes it look more rustic. So it's a similar process. So if you've ever done that to like old furniture and stuff, you get the idea. So you can come here now and get these flamethrowers. And I wish I had some of those little flamethrower effects, like little burning things you could stick into the barrel. But I think that looks good. Okay. So just smooth everything out a little bit, just so it's a little evenly don't want you don't want it to look goopy. So streaky's fine, because especially with Gaslands cars, because you know it's going forwards. You know, so things are going to splatter and then spread back to the back of the car. So everything should go towards the rear of the vehicle, unless for some reason the vehicle is supposed to be driven in reverse the entire race. But hey, you know, you do you. But that's how it is. I mean, that's the simplest way of making a model look amazing. And when this dries, it's going to look great. So now we're done with all the base shading. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to target the big four. And they're really not the big four. This is the way I have to see it. There's 4 main colors to bringing out the rest of your build. And again, this is just the stuff I use, but you can use whatever you want. I like this speed paint yellow here, and I'll give you a good example of what it makes really good for. Well, just a little dot here. We don't need a lot. This stuff is normally supposed to go over like a white background, and then it makes it look bright yellow and whatever. So like on this GSX's chassis, you can see here I did the headlights. And so you see they're white right now. Well, it's the wasteland, you know, so your headlights aren't going to last that bright white look to them, so you don't want that bright white shininess. Yeah, if you do want to make them look newer, you can go with like this blue here, and this is Higgins blue, and you know, I'm not sponsored by Higgins. I mean, I would love to be sponsored, but anyway, so now you can see, now your headlights got that, I hope this is in focus. Now you see it's got like that, there we go. Yay, it's in focus now. So now you can see, now they look like, let's back out of focus, there it goes. So, yeah, now you see the GSX's headlights. It looks like something's been sitting in the wasteland for a while. And if you want to see what the blue will do, I like doing a little bit of blue. It gives the, oh, what are they called? They're like LEDs, but they're like the new bright ones that drive everybody up the wall. So like you can do this blue here, and again just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, thin it down a little bit, and we'll say like this one here, and then we just come here and we'll add a little bit of the blue. And again, inks, they just go into the recesses, and you just kind of coax it with your brush a little bit. It's not too hard. This is one of those things where you can be a little bit messy, and if you do mess up, you can just wipe it off with your thumb. And you can see there, now your headlights got this like little bit of a blue tinge to them. So, yeah, just a little bit. You don't need to, you don't want to slather it down. I'm going to get a little bit of blue here. I'm going to add a little bit of blue in this rockets. Shade them a little bit. This is really the next step, is to take these colors here and work them into your model. And the black ink usually is a good base, so everything kind of builds up off of it. And so we'll do the blue. Green is good for any of like your laser sights and stuff like that. So let's see here, show a little bit of that. So like get the it's hard to see here, but there's like a little laser sight in the center of the barrel, and a little mortar at the top. It's got this like sight. So this one, I'm not going to do any water because I kind of just want to bring out the green. So come up here, doop, doop, and a little bit of doop there. Now you can cut think you can kind of see it. It's, I guess, not quite as... The camera's probably not doing me any favors here, but... you can also use the green to, like, shade, like, this guy's alcohol bottle. You know, so you come up here and... Like this one here. And a lot of times these shades will pull out the metallic look of these miniatures, especially if you use metallic paint. Well, if you use metallic paint, so it's like, I think you can kind of see. So, yeah, so that's pretty much that. And red is, of course, for like your tail lights and stuff. It brings out the tail lights and makes them look sharper. And so that's the next step. And then we'll be moving on to the final touches.